Crowdfunding, in theory, is a great thing. It's a good way of getting games made that would otherwise just not see the light of day. But systems like Kickstarter and Fig do have their flaws. They can easily be abused and things can just kind of go wrong with projects sometimes. So you have to wonder, is it ever worth risking your money on a game that might never actually be made?
Kickstarter first appeared in 2009, promising a system where the public could pay money to support which projects they wanted to see realised. Available worldwide, Kickstarter provided an avenue for developers to gain support for their own projects which had not received traditional funding through publishers. Everything from books and video games to short films and even food. There was something for everyone to choose from. The result has been something of a boom in indie projects and smaller video games that may have never emerged otherwise, as well as massive projects like Star Citizen.
Crowdfunding has actually been responsible for some of the most critically acclaimed games of the last few years. Titles like Wasteland 2, Pillars of Eternity, Divinity Original Sin, and Torment Tides of Numenera were all crowdfunded and released to immensely positive reviews. One common theme shared between these games are that they are all niche RPGs in the classical Dungeons and Dragons style, usually with an isometric view. Torment Tides of Numenera is in fact a spiritual sequel to Planescape Torment from the 90s. These types of games kind of died off in mainstream gaming in the 2000s, but there clearly is still an appetite for them. Crowdfunding is the ideal method for getting niche games like this made. There is still an audience who want to play games like Pillars of Eternity, and they're willing to pay the development team to make them.
In theory, Kickstarter is awesome because it enables developers to be crowdfunded and to follow their dreams and realise their vision for a game without having to resort to a publisher or a big company who has to please their shareholders, and they might have to compromise their vision for more profit, basically. So in essence, this is a great platform. This is it has great potential to enable creators to realize their dreams.
The cause of that, I think, is the fact that the people funding the campaign agree with you on what the game should be. The people paying for it and the people making it agree on what makes the game great, and they have a shared vision of how the game should pan out. So there's no board, there's no directors, there's no shareholders dictating how much money they want to make, and wondering why there isn't a multiplayer, because multiplayer usually makes a lot of money, and their influences are all about what makes the game good, and the people paying for it understand what will make it good because they want to play it. They're not paying for it to make money, they're paying for it because they want to experience it themselves. Another point is the fact that we kind of have control over the games that are being made through Kickstarter. We can actually decide what comes on the market because we can pay for it, we can make it happen, literally put our money down and make it happen. We don't have to sit back and wait for Sony and EA and Activision to tell us what games we're going to be playing next year. We can decide what we do want to play by backing the Kickstarter projects and the Fig projects and whatever that we like. Another positive aspect of crowdfunding is the fact that it allows original ideas to flourish. For anyone tired of the same old AAA open-world action-adventure games with RPG elements that are flooding the market currently, Kickstarter projects can offer an enticingly fresh alternative. Crowdfunded games don't have to worry about pleasing the mass market or a group of shareholders. This frees them up to follow through on their own vision without having to dumb down the game for mass appeal.
Kickstarter is also a much better system than Early Access. Early Access has you pay up front for a game that is still in active development. More often than not, these games are already priced at the $20 to $30 mark, and the majority are still unfinished, broken pieces of shit. Some games, like DayZ, linger in early access for years. With crowdfunding though, backers are free to choose how much to donate to a project, so there's much less financial risk. If the project isn't funded in time, you lose no money whatsoever because they don't charge you unless the goal has been met by the end date. If the project fails, you can just carry on with your day. Whereas early access takes your money and leaves you high and dry with a broken game that may never actually be finished, while the developers are nowhere to be seen, laughing all the way to the bank.
But as with everything video game related, there are some serious drawbacks to crowdfunding. It's not a perfect system by any means, and there are sadly several cases of the system just being abused completely by developers and publishers. The all-seeing enlightened one of gaming, Peter Molyneux, attracted a huge amount of criticism for his abuse of Kickstarter between 2012 and 2015. Molyneux and his development studio 22 Cans made the game Godus, a spiritual sequel to Populous, after a successful funding campaign on Kickstarter. Upon release, the game was not what backers expected and failed to meet even the most basic of promises. Molyneux was criticised for his characteristic over-promising and muddled business strategy. The developer followed this up by saying he would never speak to the press again. A few days later, he was interviewed by The Guardian and Rock Paper Shotgun. Classic Molyneux.
Publishers have also been known to use Kickstarter to reduce the financial burden on themselves and pass it on to Kickstarter backers instead. Shenmue 3 is one of the most successful crowd-funded projects of all time, but at the same time, Sony and Sega announced they were co-publishers on the game. This pissed off a ton of fans who questioned why people are being expected to fund the game when there are two huge publishers involved in the project. Officially, publishers say they are only on board to help with marketing or provide some technical support. But you have to say, it's a very nice little arrangement for them. I mean, that's what Kickstarter that's for, isn't it? So you don't have to appeal to the publishers. Them getting involved in it, it's like, why are they getting involved? The only reason they would get involved is because they see a profit in it. It's a bit dubious, isn't it?
Kickstarter is there as kind of a substitute in a way for publishers. If you can't get a publisher, then you turn to Kickstarter. That's the origin story of a lot of these Kickstarter projects. So it is weird when, you know, Sega and Sony are involved, and it's also on Kickstarter, so it's getting donations. There should be no crossover at all. They're individual. You should stay separate from each other when it comes to paying for games, because it can't ever lead to anything good, if you ask me. Unless Shenmue 3 is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's not just the publisher thing. That's not the only problem by far. You know, the fact that projects can fall through very easily. There's never any guarantee that a game will be made. AAA games from publishers get cancelled all the time. It can happen. So you can end up disappointed waiting years and years for things.
You look at Star Citizen, that's the prime example.
Yeah.
The original Kickstarters were promised a certain product by a certain date.
Yeah.
Now, the Kickstarter was funded, the money was been taken. Now, they're adding more goals as they go along now. So those original Kickstarters who backed Star Citizen to begin with are left out in the cold because they're never going to get what they originally paid for, because they keep adding shit, and who knows when Star Citizen will now be released. It's a case of, you are taking a gamble no matter what with Kickstarter. You never know exactly how it's going to turn out, or they're going to change their minds after they get your money, which is one of the big criticisms for Star Citizen.
That's the thing with Peter Molyneux as well, as we mentioned. He makes promises. He gets really enthusiastic about games. You can't deny that about him. He does get excited about what the projects that he's working on, but that burns out, and that's exactly what happened with Godus. He kind of lost interest. The 22 Cans development team that was working on it just disintegrated over time, and when he loses interest in it, well, that's fine. He's got personal. He's a millionaire. He doesn't have to worry about it. But you've been waiting for Godus for years. You've been excited about it, and it's what you get isn't what you were promised from the promise of promises. But the thing with Star Citizen as well, the stretch goals on that, as you mentioned, stretch goals cause problems. I think when they suddenly they're pressuring themselves to add multiplayer or whatever. Adding big bits of gameplay that require a lot of development, because they've met certain stretch goal targets. That only lengthens development time, changes the game from what it was originally supposed to be, and just kind of causes more problems than it solves, I think.
I think the big takeaway here is that Peter Molyneux and his old man boner, excitement to begin with, but it doesn't last for long, does it? Kickstarter is undoubtedly a good system, but all those benefits don't come without the disadvantages. On a positive side, Pillars of Eternity was backed, it was released, and everybody was happy, and on the back of that, they're making a sequel on the back of another hugely successful Kickstarter campaign. So of course we are going to have to wait and see how Star Citizen turns out, whether it's a success or not. But so far, on the whole, the majority of Kickstarter campaigns seem to be meeting people's expectations. Have you guys ever used Kickstarter to support a project? Let us know down in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button if you're new around here, check out some more of our content around about here, and we will see you again in the next video. Until then, bye for now.